to this computer. I'm going to pause it. We'll have to unmute yourself so we can start
Oh, I don't need it.
recording. So Sherry, if you want to spotlight Allison, and I will work on muting all. Allison, you might have to unmute yourself once I mute all.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah.
All right, well, I guess we'll get started. Welcome to our biscuit class. I'm so happy to be here again. Again, my name's Chef Allison Davis, and this is such a great resource. So I'm glad Kenna and Sherry, you took some time to highlight some things that are coming up too, because really in your area, this is just a fantastic resource for you guys to do things in a safe way and at a very minimal cost. So thank you again for having me, and let's get to making some biscuits. So the first thing I want to talk about is just kind of, I guess, the how-tos of biscuits and the important tips of biscuit making. And that is, you don't have to use fancy flour. We're using all-purpose flour tonight. You want to make sure that your butter and your shortening are cold, okay? So if your butter is not in the refrigerator for your biscuits, go ahead and pop it in the refrigerator or pop it in the freezer if it is at room temp. So cold butter is key. When we get to the point of mixing our butter, we want our biscuits together. I want you to know that the less you mix them together, the better off you are, because an overworked biscuit is a tough biscuit, and nobody wants biscuits to be tough, and nobody wants it. You want light fluff. So when to bring that mixture, so I think I see some gathering butter and getting that in the fridge. So I want to do that. If you want to go ahead and measure it out or cut into cubes, actually I think it's easier to cut it into cubes when it's cold. But you're going to need about 6 tablespoons of butter for one biscuit and about 6 tablespoons of butter for the other biscuit. So roughly 2.5 sticks tops. Are we freezing up at all, McKenna?
We are freezing up on and off, at least on my screen, and I would assume on Sherry's, she's been kind of that way, saying yes too. The only
This is,
go ahead.
this is Kathy Maines. Are we on?
Yes, we're on.
Okay, thank you. I'm having problems.
Okay. Allison, are you frozen?
All right. Moving on.
Yes. Okay, one thing I'm going to ask everyone to do, if they would please, because sometimes it helps with the connection since we have so many people on here. We want to see you doing it, but I'm going to ask a lot of you, if you could, to kind of pause your video for a little bit as she demonstrates. And then as you're actually working, then you can put your video back on. That might help with the connection some, or I've been told that might help with the connection some. So, but we'll kind of see how it goes as we go through the process. Okay. So if you don't care,
All right.
how, try to work on your video. Okay.
All right. And I'll go back over, and I can go back over, and I'll be with you through the steps. So no worries here. All right. The first thing we're going to start with, we're going to do the buttermilk biscuits, and then we'll go to the sweet biscuits while our buttermilk biscuits are baking. You want to have your oven preheated to about 400 degrees. Okay. So if your oven's not on, go ahead and get that to 400. And I mean, you could even go 425 if you feel like your oven cooks a little light. You know your oven, right? Some ovens cook hot, some ovens don't cook quite to the temp they say they are. So if it's that case, then maybe take your oven on up to 425.
If you don't know how to pause your video, don't worry about it, okay? If it gets really bad, we can pause videos for everybody.
We're good. Okay, so we're gonna move on and we're gonna start with 2 cups of just all-purpose flour. I'm not sifting it, so just 2, generous size, just 2 cups of flour. And I cut this recipe down just because you're not making a ton of biscuits here because this is a class, but you can double this if you want to make a larger batch of biscuits, okay? I just cut the quantity down for the class purpose.
So the temperature she said to put the oven on was 400. If your oven cooks light, put it on 425. And Allison, a question was asked, do you put it in the middle rack?
I do put it in the middle rack. I don't put it right underneath, but if your oven is not, if your biscuits are not,
Allison, I think you froze.
Yeah, that's where the bandwidth issue is. I wonder if she is a better spot for putting her phone or her device, maybe gets a better signal.
Yeah, because the last couple classes, we didn't have this happen. And we've had about the same number of participants. So I don't even know if she can hear me right now.
No, I don't see her either.
Hold on.
I can make sure, let me make sure I'm hooked up to my Wi-Fi.
Okay.
Turning off the camera helps you at your local level of not absorbing your own bandwidth. So and we can't have Allison turn her camera off. So
Right.
hopefully-
So, okay, that's good to know, Megan, because I really wasn't sure. I just know in other things we were at.
I know we do it in my classes all the time because the students having the same thing and, checking in with IT, that's what they say. If the students have a problem, maybe get them to turn off their video.
Yeah.
I think we've lost her altogether.
I
don't-
think she's, I see her. Is she still frozen?
Do you? Because I don't. Maybe she'll be.
Allison, can you hear us?
Yeah. Can somebody?
To my Wi-Fi.
Do you have a?
Yes, I can hear you and I see myself.
Okay.
How about I hang out? Can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
Can you see me?
Yes. And you're not frozen right now. Did you hook up? Were you hooked onto your Wi-Fi?
Yeah, I am hooked onto my Wi-Fi. I checked it.
Okay. Well, we'll see how things go for a little bit and hopefully.
Okay. All right. All right. Sorry again. Please, that's the fun part of
Technology.
whatever. Next ingredient. The first thing we're doing is we are combining our dry ingredients. So you are going to add your baking powder and your baking soda. Both of these are key to helping it to be a leavener to rise, right? So you're going to add 2 teaspoons of baking powder.
Allison, it keeps
Gonna have
showing
to
on us that your
rise.
bandwidth is low.
Then a half a teaspoon.
Okay, so the recipe we have calls for a tablespoon of baking powder. So what should we use on the baking powder? I missed that.
Did you hear that question, Allison? The recipe we had
For the butter,
no
for the
had a-
buttermilk biscuits.
Yeah, it had a tablespoon of baking powder
And no baking soda.
and a half a teaspoon of baking soda for 2 cups. Do we need, or is that?
Okay,
or
so
can we
I
change
think
that?
so that is correct.
Okay, So we're using,
That's fine. One
cups.
so 1 tablespoon of baking powder is the equivalent of 3 teaspoons. So I think I just added a teaspoon because I do kind of like a heaping teaspoon when I measure. So 1 tablespoon of baking powder is just perfect.
okay,
And then a half a teaspoon of the baking soda is going into the 2 cups of flour.
okay.
All right. And that is your dry ingredients. Now we, for these, we're gonna make these
But-
like a little,
Allison, did you put salt in there? Yes.
not yet. We're
Okay.
talking, we're
Okay.
going there.
Okay, you're good.
All right, so you can do 1,000 different flavors if you want with your biscuits. What I had thought of to do, and I think included the ingredient list, making these a little bit savory. You don't if you don't want to, but I on garlic and thyme biscuits. So we're gonna add some of those into this if you want. But you always add salt to your biscuits. And then I always like to add pepper to my buttermilk biscuits just because it gives a little bit more contrast in the flavor. So that's up to you, but you're gonna add about a half a teaspoon salt. Baking soda. If you add a little bit of pepper, if you have it, about the same amount, about a half a teaspoon.
Pepper, if you want. You don't have to.
And then if you are going to make biscuits, if you are going to make those savory biscuits, you can add that in now if you like, which is going to be about a 1/4 cup to 1/2 cup of Parmesan cheese, teaspoon of garlic powder, and some herbs. So I'm going to add that now. We still following along?
Yeah.
Okay.
Let me recap a few things for everybody because there are times you're freezing up. So what Allison has said so far, in case you had trouble, she added her half a teaspoon of salt. If you had black pepper and wanted to add it, you could add black pepper. For the savory part of the biscuit, you're adding a 1/4 cup of Parmesan and a half a teaspoon of garlic powder. You don't have to, that's totally optional. But if you're making the that savory biscuit, you're adding that 1/4 cup of Parmesan and a half a teaspoon of garlic powder.
And I just add a little bit of like a pinch of fresh herbs in there.
Right. And so most of you got thyme in your package or in what you picked up from the office if you picked it up, or if you bought your own supplies, you had some thyme. So what you're going to want to do with the thyme is just like pull some of it off of those stems and add it to it if you want, because it was fresh thyme.
All right. Now, all we're going to do is just give this a little stir, just to stir up the baking powder, the baking soda in there. And then we're just going to go and get our cold butter at this point. This is the key step to biscuit making that's different than your cakes and your other baked goods. And that is cutting in the butter so that it's mixed and intertwined through every layer of this dough. So you're going to grab those 6 tablespoons of butter and a little bit of vegetable shortening, and we're going to add that in. So I'm going to go grab my butter.
Okay. Just so I know, is everybody good so far? If not, ask questions. Everybody's with Allison to this point, correct?
Yeah, so we're thinking a half a teaspoon of the fresh thyme.
The recipe called for a bunch of thyme. So it's totally up to you on how much of the herb you want to put in, but I would think if you're using dry, put in a little less. If you're using fresh, put in a little more. And depending on how well you like thyme or don't like thyme, I don't think you can go wrong with the amount you put in.
All right, now you're going to get your hands dirty. This is kind of where I feel like your hands are your best tools, where you just really start to break that butter up into almost like pea-sized shapes. You can use a pastry cutter if you want to try to cut that. But again, I just sometimes feel the best thing is just getting your hands in there and quickly getting that butter crumbled up so that it's not melting and it's still nice and cold.
So they should have had the butter like maybe cubed up Or in
You
the,
can cube it up. If it's not cubed up and it's coming straight out of the fridge, go ahead and cube it up, cut it up into small pieces, and then just throw all of that into your flour and then just start crumbling it in with the flour. Again, it's going to resemble like almost like little peas in the flour, the shape of it and the size. Like and I've got a secret for some of biscuit, right? So we're using a couple teaspoons of vegetable shortening in. But if you don't have this, there's something my grandmother always had, and that was something that makes for an awful great biscuit as well. And that's just a little bit of that bacon fat. Throw that in there. The reason you want to add the vegetable shortening or lard in with your butter is because just like when we made the pie crust, the vegetable shortening and the or lard helps to crisp up the outside of the biscuit. It makes all the difference.
Okay, Allison, we're probably gonna have to pause for a few seconds to let everybody get their butter and their shortening in.
And the goodness. Sorry.
Okay. You froze there for a few seconds, but just so everybody's on the same page, okay? We have 6 tablespoons of cold butter broke up into pea-sized little pieces going into our flour mixture. Also the same with the 2 tablespoons of shortening. She added bacon fat. If you got bacon fat sitting on your stove, add some bacon fat. If you want, in place of the shortening or in addition to it, Allison? In place of, I think.
Either or. You can
Either
add
or.
like another table.
So
Did you?
we're
hear
gonna
her
let
say-
we're gonna let everybody get their butter in, and you're gonna like, if you have a pastry cutter, you can cut the butter into the dough, or you just use your hands and start breaking it into it. Allison, you're frozen. I don't know. Maybe you keep coming in and out because it says your bandwidth is low. So something's going on, and that's okay.
I'm sorry, I don't know.
That's all right. Those are things that are out of our control, but we're going to keep up, and everybody looks like they're mixing. So I think we're doing okay right now. So, but they're just basically working that butter and shortening into the flour that you have. So that's what everybody's doing, either with your hands, with a pastry cutter, with a fork. Allison.
You see how that's evenly mixed?
Yep.
Okay.
So we're gonna
I'll
let
give you-
everybody get caught up for a second because I see a lot of people still working. Don't you too, Sherry? Yeah, so let's pause for a second till we know everybody's kind of in the same spot.
what's the consistency that it needs to be with the, like with the butter, flour, lard mixture?
It needs to feel almost like corn, like coarse meal, right? So it's just the butter's kind of evenly mixed in, but it's almost like a coarse cornmeal mixture now. You don't want to play with it too much because then you're going to melt the butter, and you don't want to do that. You just want to break it up while it's cold and then move on. Now, what you want to do is you want to make a hole in the center once the butter is mixed.
Got myself, we got a lot of people mixing,
Okay.
so let them catch up mixing before we add buttermilk. I'm kind of scouting through and watching. And if some few people will give me thumbs up when they know they're caught up, that will help. Even if you just do it with your
Can you slow down a little bit?
we are waiting till everyone is caught up. How's that sound? Okay, and just so we know what everybody's doing in that process of cutting up. You are working your butter and your shortening into your flour or dry ingredient mixture. Allison said when it is finished, it's going to be like the consistency of cornmeal, kind of. You don't want to work it too much because you don't want it to melt together, but you want to work it enough that you don't see chunks of butter or shortening just sitting there by itself. So hopefully that makes sense.
I plugged my
Everybody.
phone in to the charger to see if that might help,
Okay.
but it does show I've got full bars on the Wi-Fi here.
Yeah.
Hey, Allison, how about trying maybe unplugging your modem and plugging it back in?
Still freezing up.
Yeah, a little bit. Uh-huh.
Yeah. We'll see how we work through this a little bit because that would take, yeah.
Kenna,
You're still freezing
Kenna,
some.
am I still freezing up? I am.
Mhm.
Do you want me to go out and kind of log back in?
I don't want to lose you. What do you think, Sherry?
You can try, someone has suggested, changing where, like, your modem, or you could even try it not using your Wi-Fi. If you wanted to try it like that, just using your, if you're on your phone or something, try it not using your Wi-Fi and see if that would help.
Yeah.
Okay,
That might
I can
be-
turn Wi-Fi off then.
Yeah, that might be a better option. And see.
I know my home Wi-Fi isn't always the best, and so I have to use my phone sometimes.
Yeah, I do
Is
too.
that better?
Well, I can hear you better, but I don't see you.
I'm not hooked up to the Wi-Fi.
Yeah. We'll try that for a while and see what happens. But
When I was gonna say she disappears to just her name, but now I see her.
yeah.
Hi,
Okay.
I have a
I
question.
need to see how everybody's doing. Are we close to being caught up?
I heard Patsy, I think, had a question. I think it was Patsy with a question. Or
I
somebody.
have my butter in the flour. Now, are you supposed to put the shortening in too?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
You're working that all in the same. You're cutting it in with a cutter. You could use 2 forks. You can use your hand. You're not overworking it. You don't want it all sticking together like dough. You want it like cornmeal, Allison said.
Should it be all cornmeal or is it okay if there's some little tiny peas in there?
Yeah, little tiny peas are perfect.
Hey, it's
You
Michelle.
see-
Got a quick.
Somebody, Michelle, you said you had a question?
Yeah. On our pie crust, we used a food processor. Is it a bad idea to use a food processor for the biscuits?
No, you could absolutely do the same. Yeah, you could pulse it a couple of times and use a food processor.
Okay, thank you.
I do that when I'm making large batches of biscuits.
Yeah. She just wanted you to get your hands dirty more today.
Oh, yeah. Elbow grease. Are you hearing me a little better?
Yeah,
Things
we are
working a little better?
I think so.
Okay.
Mhm. I see other people shaking their head, so.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
All right, so if you have your flour, your butter broken, your shortening broken, if you add a little bacon grease, that's great. We are gonna make a hole in the center and we're gonna go get our buttermilk, okay?
Buttermilk.
Now for the buttermilk, it said it was 3/4 the cup to a cup. So you're gonna need a measuring cup too. So get your buttermilk and a measuring cup.
Is there a trick to get the leaves off if you don't have one of those fancy, strip the leaves off your
The time?
time? Yeah.
When I take the time, say the leaves are pointing up, you go the reverse direction that the leaves are pointing, and that helps to strip them off of the stem.
Okay. Got it.
You can use a fork to pull those leaves off.
All right, so you're gonna get your liquid measuring cup if you have one. It does, I will say, liquid measuring cups tend to measure a little bit more than just a dry measuring cup. So if you're using a dry measuring cup for your buttermilk, you may need to add a little bit more than a cup, because sometimes the dry measuring cups measure a little light. So that's why you always want to measure liquid with liquid. All right, so we're going to pour the liquid into the middle of our well.
And our direction says 3/4,
And then
3/4 of a cup to a cup. What did you start with? 3/4?
you always, and that's the key, you can always add 2. You can't take away, but if it gets too wet and too sticky, we can fix it, so don't worry. So if you want to watch me for just a moment, I'll show you kind of the technique that I go about mixing so that you don't get it clumped so much into your hands. But I tend to start with my hand like a scoop and just start working my way around the outside. So I'm just taking the dry and just kind of pushing the dry around the bowl, just starting to work it in to the wet. I'm really not mixing, I'm just kind of stirring and mixing around, okay? You're gonna get some things on your hands, obviously, but I try to prevent it as much as possible. So we're just mixing that around and just kind of stirring it to where it's together. You don't want to be kneading this dough, okay?
All right, am I done?
Now you see, it's going to get on your hands. It's just part of it. But do you see how I'm more or less just kind of rolling it? I'm rolling it in the bowl to bring it together, but I'm not really squishing or kneading. I'm just kind of folding it over, rolling it around, just trying to get it together. Once you get this together, that's all you want to do. So now, if you see in the bottom of my bowl, I've still got some crumbs. So I'm going to add a little bit more liquid because I've got some crumbling happening in the bottom of the bowl. So if it's crumbling and starting to flake apart, you're going to add a little bit more of that liquid, okay?
Do you want
see
to recap everything that she just said, just to be on the
Yep.
safe side?
Yep. So if you watched what Allison's been doing, she cupped her hand and she's working it from the outside in. Remember earlier she told us you don't want to work it too much. That's where you get dry biscuits. So you're not kneading it. You're just working that moisture into the dough. If you have a little bit of extra of the flour mixture at the bottom, you can always add a little more buttermilk. If you can tell by your hands, it is sticky. So it's not like it's going to be dry because it's sticking to her some. But you're just trying to mix all the dry ingredients with some of the moisture. So you don't want flour just sitting on it. You want it all mixed in. And she worked it from the outside in. And then when you're done, you can see it's going to be sticky. It's not a dry dough. And you'll have a nice
All right.
sticky ball.
There you go. Perfect description. A nice sticky mass.
A nice
All right. All you're wanting to do now is we're gonna turn this out of the bowl, but you want to make sure you have some flour on your surface, okay? And then just put some flour on your hands, and that'll take some of that stickiness off. And you can turn it out.
You put your mat down if you want. Okay, Allison, you froze for a second. So I'm going to recap what Allison just said, hoping she connects back with us. So we're still mixing. You're getting into that sticky ball form. You're going to find the counter space or whatever you want to work on. You're going to flour that counter space down, and you're going to put some flour on your hands, because this is where we're going to start rolling that out some to cut into our biscuit shapes. You're not overworking it. You're not kneading it. You've got it sticky sitting on flour on your counter once you get that far. And I know we have some catching up to do on some people, Allison. So we're gonna hang on for a few minutes until we know everybody has their dough mixed and out on their counter. So those that have videos on are the ones I'm kind of watching to see where we're at. And why, if you're ahead of everyone else and you already have it here, you're gonna look for something that you're gonna roll it with, I believe. And you're,
If you don't have a roller, you don't need it. A lot of times, all I do is just pat it down with my hands. So
Okay.
save yourself the trouble of dirtying up your rolling pin for this one, and
Perfect.
just pat it out with your hands to about, I'd say, those 2 fingers thick. Okay, that's about how thick my dough is on the side.
so if you heard that, she's putting a 2-finger width up. You're patting it out till it's that 2-finger width on your dough. And I really need you guys to unmute yourself if we're going too fast or too slow, so we don't lose you in this process of getting it out. So you should have your dough out on the counter. You should be patting it out to where it's about 2 fingers width. I moved my hands the wrong way. It's the opposite of what the dough is going to be.
So this seems pretty thick to me, and I probably have about a 6-inch circle. Hers looks bigger.
Let me look at, hold on 1 second, Rosie.
I doubled my recipe.
She doubled her recipe, and I would say when I looked at Mariah's and Jess's over there, theirs is about what I would consider maybe the width of my hand across. So you probably,
Yeah, I doubled my recipe. I'm serving these
so
biscuits
remember
on
we're just doing,
Thursday.
we're doing
So I just-
samples. So Rosie, my best, what I would say the width of it's going to be about on a single recipe is like a cake pan, a circled cake pan. That's about the width of what you're going to be patting out at 2 fingers width deep.
Got it. Thank you. I'm ready.
All right. Now, if you don't have a biscuit cutter, you don't need a biscuit cutter. You can use a coffee cup. You can use a cup. The only thing I'm going to tell you not to do is when you cut, you don't want to twist. When you twist, that does affect the dough and can prevent it from flaking up and rising together. So you really just want to go straight down and then come back up.
Okay. How flat were we supposed to do this?
Okay, you're pushing
Or how thick?
you should be 2 finger widths depth on your dough. So you're
Oh, okay.
a 6 to 7 inch circle because we're just making a few. Allison's looks bigger because she doubled her recipe. If you were making these again and you were doubling your recipe, you'd be the same way. But about the width of my fingers, 2
I
fingers.
mean, you can go one, if you want to roll it a little thinner, you can go to 1 finger if it's your index finger. I was kind of doing it from the side, like as I rolled with my pinky and my ring finger, but you could do like 1 if you wanted.
Okay. No, I'd rather.
If you wanted to roll it a little thinner, that's fine.
Yeah. Okay, so you kind of see where she's at.
How many biscuits?
You guys
How many
probably
biscuits
get
should we
about
get?
6, would you say? Are you going to get 12?
Yeah, you should probably get 6 to 8. You should probably get 6 to 8 biscuits out of yours.
I'll do the smaller one.
Thank you.
Depending on the size of your cup that you're using or the biscuit cutter, if you got biscuit cutters.
Yeah, you could make mini biscuits.
Yep. So she hasn't put them on anything yet. She's just cutting them all out.
And then what you do, you're going to roll that rest of that dough and you're going to roll that back up and you're going to get more biscuits out of that, right? You can use this down to the last drop.
I took the straw off of this one and put it in the bowl.
Remember though, you just want to combine it. You don't want to over mix it. You just want to bring it together and then pat that back out.
So if you saw what she did, she cut it all of the dough that she had. Now she's patting it back out and cutting more with the scraper. And you're just, don't overwork it, just push it back together and pat it back out.
It's surprising what you can get out of it once you start working the dough back and start, getting it back. I mean, you can really stretch it and get more and more biscuits. I don't waste a drop if I can help it.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Okay.
Should they be touching when you get ready to put them in the pan?
We haven't panned them yet.
That's
We'll
where
go over that when we pan them.
That's where we're going next. I'm gonna grab my pan, but you are right. Somebody knows their biscuits.
Oh, thank you.
Kind of pan. Jesus.
So I'm just going on a piece of parchment. You can go in a round pan or you can go in a cake pan, but you do want your biscuits touching. Because the reason we do this is they cling to each other as they rise. So you want them touching each other so that they will rise more. They like each other.
I have your pan there, Jessa, when you're ready.
Are we coating the pan with anything?
She put parchment paper under hers.
No, I put a piece of parchment. I put a piece of parchment paper down, sprayers if you want, but it's not required. It's not necessary. It's totally fine. There's enough butter in those biscuits. You should be able to pull them right off, take them right off the pan with a spatula.
I have some people still cutting biscuits. I have some people getting their pans ready to place them on it. From what I can see.
I want to mention that there's one more step in case some people are ahead. Don't put them in the oven yet. We have one more step.
All right. You're just ready to be onto the pan.
Hey, I just realized that I forgot to put baking soda in. Will that ruin my biscuits?
No.
She froze on.
No, the baking powder, yes, but the baking soda, no. Powder is the most important thing because I make a lot of biscuits a lot of times at home with just so you're fine.
Right.
Okay. I have baking powder, just not baking soda.
You should be fine.
Okay.
Yeah,
cool.
you should be fine.
Mine is like sticky. Is that how it's supposed to be?
Is it? What did you say?
Mine are very sticky, like super sticky.
A little bit more flour to the outside and underneath, and that should help you with the stickiness.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
All right, if you have one of these, that would be great. If you
Allison, hold on one second because we don't see what you're showing. You're frozen.
Gosh, guys, I don't know why. I'm so sorry.
That's okay. All right. I saw something in your hand a second ago.
All right.
She has a pastry brush.
Yeah, if you have one of these, great. If not, just use a spoon. But in your next recipe, you should have some cream, some heavy cream. Or you should have heavy cream for whipped cream for our dessert.
Yeah. You should have.
So if
she's using heavy cream. If you saw, she got.
you just need a tablespoon, but you're just going to brush the tops of the biscuits with the cream. If you don't have a brush, just use a spoon and spread it.
I'm not gonna lie, I've used my fingers to spread it before too.
That works too.
I have a question about the scraps as you're putting them back together to make biscuits. Out of
Yes.
I'm sorry if you already covered this. I got a phone call and so I missed part of it. So
That's okay.
I'm trying to be really careful so I don't tough up my biscuits, but you just kind of squeeze that and pat it and a little bit to get it back together. Okay.
Yes, you just don't want to overwork it, but you do want to bring it back together.
Okay. It's amazing how hard it is not to twist that biscuit cutter. It's kind of like the thing with cutting with your scissors or with your knife and not using your pointer finger.
Yeah.
And because, lastly, I know some of you are still cutting, some of you are brushing, some of you might even still be mixing the dough, so we can go back over that. But because these are my savory biscuits, I'm going to top the tops of them with a little bit of salt and pepper as well. And I know that sounds weird and different, but it makes a big difference to me because I like a salty and buttery biscuit.
Yeah. If you have a, well, hold on. I can show you better than I can explain. If you just have like a salt shaker that you can just grind over the top of it some, that works really well. And sea salt is wonderful to make things savory on the top. Put sea salt on top of your chocolate chip cookies sometime. You'll really love them.
Oh, I've got one. I've got a class for you.
Okay.
My homemade yeast rolls.
Sounds good.
That sounds like a winner.
It just dawned on me while I'm looking at these biscuits. I thought, oh no, makes me think of those yeast rolls.
Yeah. And why everybody's catching up, I can tell you, Sherry and I've been discussing. So soon after you have your last not last class, but we're going to do maybe one more class where we do, and then we're going to send you a survey. Everybody's done our classes before, like an evaluation. And we're going to ask you what other classes you would like. Oh, some of these biscuits look really good, Bonnie. Look at that salt and pepper on top of them. So,
all right.
Keep in mind these things that Allison are saying so we can hook up with Allison and say, yep, that's class we want.
I want to see Kaylin's biscuits. I know she's working hard down there.
Allison, I have a question about the oven. If you have the option to use a convection oven, is that recommended or just a plain old bake oven?
It really depends on the oven. Every single oven I've used is different, and you have to figure out what is best with that oven. With the one I use here, I like the convection because it cooks evenly on all the racks. When I don't use convection, it burns from the bottom. So you really have to figure out your oven and what's the sweet spot.
Thank you.
I see some good looking biscuits.
I have another question.
All right, who has a question?
Me. You say we need to put, we should put the heavy cream, but if we have left of the buttermilk, can we put the buttermilk instead of the heavy cream?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
So you can top the biscuits with either the buttermilk or the heavy cream then, either or?
Mm-hmm. Yes. Okay. That's what.
It's just the light brushing, and all it does is helps to blister and kind of brown the tops of the biscuits.
That's good. I'm fixing mine in orange skillet.
That's a class later.
Oh,
but that sounds good.
Have we put
and the iron skillet? The iron skillet is perfect because that vegetable shortening will crisp up around that outside of that skillet, and the inside of those biscuits will just pull apart.
Oh, I hope so.
Mm-hmm.
Have we put them in the oven
So
yet?
if you have your biscuits ready, we are now. If you have your biscuits ready and they're cut and you've brushed those with a little bit of cream or buttermilk, we are going to put those in the oven at 400 degrees or 425, depending on how your oven does. And you are going to cook those for about 12 to 15 minutes until those are nice and golden brown. We're going to let those cook while we're working on our sweet biscuits. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and pop mine in.
Okay. Real quick question, Allison. Can you make the biscuits up at this point and then cook them later?
Yes, you can freeze them. I would freeze them.
Yep. So Tony, if you were freezing them, put them in the pan and freeze them like that. And then once they're frozen, you can take them out and bag them in like a freezer bag and pull out 1 or 2 or however many you need at a time to cook as you're getting ready to cook them.
Yeah.
So 12 minutes, right?
12 minutes.
Yep.
Did you set your timer? Gotcha. It's not my dog barking this time.
That's mine.
Jenna, I will mention, you may need to go up to 15 minutes depending on the oven, but we're going to look at the tops of those biscuits to really be able to determine when we're ready to pull those, because we want the tops to be a nice kind of golden brown.
Good deal.
So if and they're nice and baked, but we haven't browned those tops, that's when we might move our biscuits up to the top and go another 2 or 3 minutes.
Okay. If everybody heard that, you're wanting a nice golden brown to the top of those biscuits. We're starting out at 12 minutes. We can always increase them. And Allison said, everybody's oven cooks different. We know that. I know mine cooks totally different here at the house than it does at the office, because I have a gas stove and it cooks different than the electric ones at our office. So you got to kind of watch. Mine might be done in 12 minutes. Yours might take 15 minutes. If you're not getting a good golden brown to the top of it, she says you can move it up a little higher in the oven for the last few minutes. But when that 12-minute marks come, we'll probably all kind of check them. So have a timer. And I believe Allison's going to go on and start mixing our second batch while these are kind of cooking. And we'll stop in the process so we can check.
So are we making our strawberry shortcakes now?
If you want, they have strawberries. We're making the sweet biscuit. Do you want to make the topping for the strawberries first or the biscuit first?
We are going to make the strawberry mixture first. So you're going to just want to
so
cut
this is
those
strawberries.
strawberries in quarters, and we're going to get those in the bowl. And that way they can start developing their syrup while we cook our biscuits.
Like the one on the top?
Yep.
The one on top.
One on the top. Jessica's getting her strawberries out. So you're strawberries out, you're cutting them in quarters, she kind of said. We're going to do that first before we mix up our next biscuits.
And then you'll need two cups of strawberries cut up into quarters,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
You may be okay with 1 cup since we did cut the
Recipe in
quantity.
You can eat
This
all of
one
those.
actually makes more biscuits, this recipe.
Yep. So somebody asked, if you're making them in an iron skillet, do you heat up the skillet first or put it in the oven cold?
I don't think you need to heat the skillet up ahead of time on this one. It's not like your cornbread mixture. It's not a wet dough, so I don't think you need to heat your skillet up ahead of time.
Strawberries into quarters, Mom.
Again.
If your strawberries are like white as they go up to should you cut the white part off because that would be too tart, or do you know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Use the redder part of the strawberries. I don't know how Sherry's strawberries looks that she got. Strawberries was not a good thing for Kenna this week. I really had to go buy a second set of strawberries because Monday morning when we got to the office, most of ours were molded, and most of the ones I found in Falmouth didn't look much better. So hopefully you get a good cup worth of your strawberries out of there. So.
And I apologize. I should have told you could do a mixed berry.
It's okay. Somebody's enjoying eating the strawberry.
Yeah, if you don't have strawberries, you could totally add in blueberries or blackberries. You could do a mixture.
Yeah. So Jess is eating her strawberries instead of cutting them up.
All right, so you're just cutting some strawberries into our container here, our bowl. We're gonna kind of keep moving here a little bit so we can get these other sweet biscuits in. So just quickly, all you're going to do with your strawberries is you're just going to add a little bit of sugar to them, just a little. And then I like to add a little bit of zest if you have a zester. If not, just a little bit of lemon juice into the strawberries.
Right. Everybody should have got a lemon, so you can zest it up a little bit with a zester. If you have a zester, if not, just cut it in half and squeeze a little bit of that lemon juice into it.
About how much sugar?
Did you see how she says just a little bit, and it looks like it snowed on her strawberries?
It's a quarter cup.
What you put on there, Allison?
I think she said it was a quarter cup of sugar that she put on there.
And now that was granulated, not powdered sugar, right?
Yes.
In that container, smallest.
It was granulated and not powdered sugar, yes.
It said she spent up about a cup of what you had, just whatever you had is good. I saw somebody.
Can I use Splenda?
Yeah, you could do Splenda on your strawberries.
Okay, thank you.
So yeah, if you didn't hear, she said that you could use Splenda instead of the regular sugar as well. So any type of alternative sweetener would be fine.
And then we're just gonna set the strawberries aside and let those hang out.
Okay, so yes, when they said, do we zest with the lemon or juice it?
I use both the zest and the juice of one lemon.
Okay. So you're zesting a little bit of the lemon on there, and then you're like half and put a little, juice it a little. If you don't have a zester, you can just use the juice. If you have like a cheese grater, usually it has a zesting side on it, or you can use a little bit of that.
It looks like it has lemonade on it, and it's not lemonade.
Yeah. All right, how's everybody's strawberries going? We about ready to start mixing our other dough. I see some strawberries. They look pretty good.
Are we using the whole lemon for the juice?
Yes, she's shaking her head yes. So yes, use the whole lemon. And I don't know what Jess just said, but whatever she said sounded awfully cute.
She said it looks like she has lemonade on her strawberries. I don't know. If you don't like a lot of lemon, don't use all the lemon. That's a flavor.
Yeah, it's personal preference. Sometimes I like to add fresh mint in the summer, just chop up some fresh mint in there with it. So it's personal preference.
Yep.
All right, so we're gonna go on to our biscuits if we're ready. You let me know.
Everybody good to move on to making the next biscuit dough? Most of us should have about 2 or 3 minutes left on the biscuits that are in the oven. So don't forget about them too.
I'm zesting my lemon.
I'm showing another about 5 or 6 online, but
could be.
I want to squeeze that one.
So are we ready to go on to our biscuits?
If somebody's not ready, they need to speak up now. Ooh, somebody's biscuits are in the oven looking good.
I'm zesting.
You're zesting. Somebody's zesting. All right. We got a few that are zesting. We got a few ready to go.
If you're ready to go, we're only going to measure out 3 cups of flour.
All right. 3 cups of flour is going into our bowl.
And can they use the same bowl as last time, or should they start out with a new bowl? I guess since it had the,
You know, if it's real sticky, you can use the same bowl. It's gonna be just fine. You're
It's all
making
about-
more. Yeah, it's gonna be
all about
fine.
less dishes, right?
You're fine with the same bowl.
All right, Cindy, I don't understand. Biscuits out of the ice ring. I don't know what that means, Cindy. Oops.
The biscuits aren't ready.
Oh, somebody's biscuits are out of the oven already?
No, unless they went.
Put 'em
I'm
in
looking
before.
at mine.
Yeah.
I'm looking at mine.
Yes, Tony, you know me well. The fewer dishes,
I
and
should
less
be-
peeling.
From where I'm at right now, we're at about 10 minutes on the biscuits.
Yeah. Some of you might have put them in a little earlier, so you're going to be your own judge. Remember what Allison says. They're going to be a golden brown on top. So you want to make sure they get to that.
I have a question.
Okay.
Yes.
I'm bringing up the rear here. So you wanted lemon juice on the strawberries, correct?
It helps with the syrup, you know, where it's to make that syrup that you want on a strawberry shortcake.
Okay. Thanks.
All right, if we're ready to move on with the sweet biscuits, the biggest difference here is we're adding some sugar to the flour to make this mixture a little bit sweeter. This is not a savory biscuit. So I'm gonna add a 1/4 cup of flour or sugar in with my flour.
So you have 3 cups of flour in your bowl so far, and now a 1/4 cup of sugar.
I hear the timer.
That's mine. I'll get it.
I just peeked
Now,
at
if
ours.
your-
They're not
if
quite.
your biscuits, so we're getting to that 11, 12 minutes. Check your biscuits, and if they're not brown, move them up to the top rack for another 2 minutes.
We just moved ours up. They're not golden brown.
Okay, so back to the sweet biscuits. We have our flour, we have our sugar, and then you're adding in 2 tablespoons of baking powder.
2 tablespoons of baking powder.
And a 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda.
Whoever forgot the baking soda the last time, make sure you add it this time.
Question, you said a 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda and the directions say 1/4, which is correct?
A 1/2 teaspoon, I apologize.
1/4 teaspoon? Okay.
A 1/2.
A 1/2. So in our directions that we have, guys, it says a 1/4. So do a 1/2.
A 1/4 will work and a 1/2 will work. Again,
Yes.
with biscuits, it's not rocket, it's not chemistry. So,
It's the baking
yeah,
powder that matters more.
yes.
So we have 3 cups of flour, a 1/4 cup of sugar, 2 tablespoons of baking powder, and a 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda.
And then 1 teaspoon of salt.
1 teaspoon of salt.
And just stir that together.
and you're just using your hand as a scoop shape. And
I just stirred it together just to mix the baking powder and baking soda together. And at this point, then you're just gonna add all that cold butter, 3/4 cup, which is a stick and a half, I believe.
Yep. And you're gonna, same way as you added it the last time, you're gonna cut it down to smaller little slices.
This step is key in biscuits. You can't skip this step.
Just
It's the
you
little,
have biscuits in the oven.
It's the little flecks of butter that create those layers in your biscuit. So this step is key to biscuit making.
There's more butter on the shelf.
Now, have they added the shortening yet, or it's just the butter, the stick of butter? And
this one is just the butter.
Just the butter.
Yeah, this one's just the butter for the sweet biscuits, and then the buttermilk.
Yep. So this one has more butter in it than the last one
because it doesn't have the shortening, right?
Yeah. A stick and a half, three quarters cups. So you have 3/4 cups being broke into there. And I'm just reminding everybody, if you haven't checked your biscuits recently, you might want to check your biscuits.
So I'm at 14 minutes on my biscuits. I'm going to go to the 15 minutes because I'm looking at them. And again, it doesn't hurt to let them go just a few more minutes longer if you really like to crisp up the outside of those biscuits, because I guarantee they're going to be soft and flaky in the center. So if you like them to be a little crispier on the outside, it does not hurt to go a couple more minutes.
Yeah, I just don't want you to forget about them.
So I'm watching my clock and I'm going to check them here in just a minute, but I'm almost right at that 15-minute mark.
So you're going to have the same kind of consistency to this after you mix the butter in as you did the first recipe.
This should be a little bit easier this second go around since you know what you're looking for.
Allison, is there a particular type of flour that you like? I know we're using all purpose, but is there a brand of flour that you like?
I like King Arthur, and I do like Martha White, I think, or the Martha White, I believe, is the two flours that I like. But I mean, a standard flour is going to do just fine, but those I do like a lot. King Arthur is a fantastic product. All right, I'm going to go check my biscuits and I'll bring them back out, and I hope to be seeing some biscuits here in a minute.
I just noticed that I used unsalted butter instead of the salted butter. Is that going to be a big deal?
You added salt to it, so you should be okay.
Okay.
That's a great question, and I always use unsalted butter in my biscuits, so you should be fine. If you use salted butter, then you can decide for yourself in this recipe. You may want to cut the salt down a little bit if you're using salted butter.
And everyone from Gallatin County, we all got unsalted butter too. So they could have used salted butter that they had at their house, but in their bags, it was unsalted butter.
Yeah, I think ours got whatever Wyatt's ordered and it was probably salted. I smell your lemons.
All right, well.
I was just going to say that's
Anybody got one of these yet? Oh, look at that.
So let's look.
Hot and ready is all I can say.
Right.
Put some butter on that biscuit, right?
Sop it up. All right, if you have your butter broke up in the bowl, then you will measure out your liquid, but I'm going to give you a few more minutes. I see some people still working.
Yep.
And I want to see some comments because I know you can't wait to just bite into those biscuits.
With some hot butter on it. Mm-mm. Ours still aren't out of the oven. I stuck them back in. They weren't quite golden brown enough. I don't know how everybody else's is doing. Ooh, yummy.
No vegetables, shortening.
I
Correct.
think I might have put too much milk on or cream on the top, and maybe that's why it's taken mine longer.
Yeah, Jessica was putting the cream on ours. That could be ours too.
Pretty darn good. Okay, are we ready to add our liquid?
How's everybody doing? Everybody ready to move on to add the liquid?
I'm still working my butter in.
I still see some people working butter in.
I put my butter in the freezer and I think it got too hard, so it's taking me a couple extra minutes.
That's okay. I'd rather it be really cold than soft.
Mariah did the same thing, Rosie. She's saying the same.
I just hate you all aren't enjoying this good biscuit yet.
Yeah, I gotta check ours again. I'm just glad you're back to where you're not freezing right now.
I'm
Fair enough.
enjoying my biscuit.
Yay!
And mine too. I hear that's Billy and Bonnie and
Yes, girlfriend.
There's mine.
Mama.
Hardy's ain't got nothing on this.
All right.
Guess I'm gonna get you a biscuit.
There's some comments in the chat too that it's delicious, great texture, best biscuits I've ever made. So good job. Good job, everyone.
And you've
I
got
have
that.
to find the butter to butter Jess's.
You've got that warm, soft center. You've got those flaky layers. That's why you could just pull it apart. But then you have that little bit of that crispy texture on the outside. If it's not that crispy, the next time you make them, let them go another 2 or 3 minutes in the oven, or turn the temp of your oven up just about 10 or 15 degrees.
Hey, John.
Here's your biscuit.
Can I eat it
You can eat it.
right now?
Yep.
So I'm getting Billy, am I getting your all's approval there? I see you eating.
Yeah, my mom is in that group, Chef.
All right,
And she has her mouth full giving a thumbs up. So I think she's enjoying them.
Break before the next course is started.
You just need some jam or some more butter and you're good to go.
We got the butter.
Somebody's enjoying
You
eating
can't
it
have
up there. Is it hot?
You can't have enough butter on a biscuit.
Jessa, is it good?
With Red Lobster.
You'll put what?
Put them right up there with Red Lobster.
Mariah's putting them right up there with Red Lobster.
How would it?
So a lot of people had that wet dough earlier. Another way and another biscuit you just made me think of it was Red Lobster. If you have that wet dough like that, you could just use a scooper and drop biscuit, right? And that's really all that is different with like those Cheddar Bay biscuits. They have a little cheese on them, but they're a wetter dough that's stickier, and you just scoop and drop them with like a spoon or a scooper.
Mr. Brent.
These things are pretty tasty.
I have not. All right, how are we on mixing our butter and our dough? Are we getting closer?
Working on it.
I want to show mine.
All right, you're going to add in your liquid. If you don't have buttermilk, and this is what I'm making with my biscuits, you can use the heavy cream, right? So if you didn't have buttermilk in the house, you could use whole milk if you wanted, but you could also use cream. So I'm going to use cream in mine, and you're going to add about a cup to start. Again, if it's crumbly, you can always add a little bit more to it. Then again, same principle, same thoughts, just working your hand around like a scoop. I'm not whisking, I'm not mixing, I'm just kind of taking my hand slowly around and just working those edges to bring it together. Just kind of rolling it around the edge, the sides. I can already tell. I can tell the mixture is going to be crumbly, so add a little bit more of that liquid.
Eat it. Okay, you heard her. She said you could use buttermilk and or heavy cream. Either one will work fine. Probably, I don't know what kind of size you got for everybody, Sherry, but you probably have plenty to use either or, because you should have extra buttermilk and you should have plenty of cream.
Mine may not have enough cream just because for making the whipped cream. So they may
Okay.
not have enough on the whipped cream. So you'll
Right.
want buttermilk more than likely, the ones from Gallatin County. But Chef Allison, I had a question about using dry buttermilk. If for some reason you didn't have buttermilk in the house and you in your pantry you had some of this dry buttermilk, have you ever used that for like biscuits or anything?
You would just mix it with water.
Sherry, does it just mix with water?
Yeah.
Do you mix the dry with water?
Yes. Yeah. You just mix it with water.
Yeah, I don't see why that wouldn't work. It may not have the exact same taste, but I don't see why that wouldn't work.
There is a way to take milk and make it into like a buttermilk? Isn't there like a substitution, Allison?
Yeah, I believe it's a cup of milk and a tablespoon of vinegar.
Yeah, I think so too.
I've made it with lemon juice too.
Yeah. And you can let that sit and then you can add that in place of it. All right, again, the same thing. Once you get your dough together, you want to just pat that out. You're gonna just put some flour on the surface and then pat that mixture out on your table. You don't have to use a rolling pin. It's really not necessary. Again, the biggest thing that I say is just making sure you don't overwork this dough. I think you can see now why I say that after you've tried this first round of biscuits.
Yep. And remember what Allison said earlier, if you're mixing yours, you're starting out with that cup of buttermilk or heavy cream. If it looks a little dry, you're adding just a little bit more. Okay, so you're going to look for that consistency like you had with the last dough. It'll be a little sticky.
And then if you put some flour on your hands, you put some flour on top of the dough and you put flour underneath the dough, then it should no longer be sticking to your hands.
Right.
But it should be in one mass. Can you see kind of how I just folded the consistency? I can pick it up, but if I, worked with it longer, it would probably get a little sticky. But I just sprinkled flour on the bottom and the top. That way I could cut it. And the same thing here, keep it nice and thick because for the shortcakes, you want to have a pretty thick biscuit so that you can cut it in half for the whipped cream and the strawberries. And then you're just going to take your cutter, again, not twisting it, but just cutting some rounds.
Using heavy cream. We'll use some buttermilk or something because we need some of that heavy cream.
Hello, can you get flour?
Uh-oh, we lost Allison. Where'd she go?
It's unbelievable. Let's roll.
I'm here. You see me?
Yeah, I don't see you spotlighted. I don't see you spotlighted anymore, Allison. Sherry, do you see her?
Thing on our body might fly off and put a crack or a crater on the paint job. Well, we got you
Maybe mute Cindy.
Cindy, I was trying to mute you. Cindy, go ahead and mute yourself.
I got her
I
muted.
can hear you, but I can't see you. I see you now.
I see you now, Allison. Can you get her back up?
Okay.
There you go. Perfect.
So will this biscuit, the sweet biscuit mixture, it will make a little bit more biscuits than the buttermilk biscuit mixture, correct? So last time we had maybe 6 to 8 biscuits.
I'm getting a dozen out of this batch. Maybe 13.
And then if you wanted
depending
them,
on what size.
if you wanted them to be a little bit thicker, maybe you would get a little bit less.
Yeah, or if you wanted bigger.
Yep. You have different size cutters. You can use a different cut. If you made a smaller biscuit to get more out of your savory, use a bigger one for your shortcake.
Is everyone in a good spot with their sweet biscuits, or how's everyone going on the sweet biscuits? I see some people still mixing. I see some people cutting. So I just wanted to touch base with the ones I can't see. Is everyone okay?
Okay, the same thing with our other biscuits. These are gonna go side by side. And if you still have that your finger or your basting brush, we're gonna brush the tops of these as well with the cream.
Okay, so if everybody heard that, you're doing the same as you did with the other biscuits. Once you have them laid out, patted out, you can go a little thicker if you want, but you know, maybe that 2 fingers width deep. You're going to cut them with your cup or a cutter. When you put them on the tray or the sheet that you're baking them on, you want them touching. And then she actually is like brushing them again with your pastry brush with a little bit of the heavy cream. You could use the buttermilk if you put the buttermilk in it. You could use either or. You might end up with a few more biscuits with this batch because we used a little more flour. But if you go with a little bit of bigger cutter, I'm watching everybody that I can.
I just had to plate them up and show you.
Oh, she plated up her biscuit.
This was the savory one we just made. That precious. Yeah, I just love how you have little flecks of pepper and salt, like, and it gives it such a nice contrast on the top of the biscuit. So that's why I like doing that with the cream. All right, so I'm just gonna brush the tops of the biscuits. Again, it's a light brush. You don't have to saturate it. It's just a little bit of like an egg wash on a pie crust or something.
And if you didn't have a brush, you could just use your fingers, or you could use a spoon or any other there.
And because these are sweet biscuits, I like to use, if you have like a little brown sugar, or if you have like, this is that turbinado, like raw sugar you see with tea, just sprinkle the top of the biscuits with the sugar this time instead of the salt and pepper.
Okay. So if you heard what
you could also use your you could also use your granulated sugar.
Right. So no matter what kind of sugar you have, you can use your granulated sugar. You can use brown sugar. Instead of salt, you're topping them with a little sugar. If it was excuse me.
And then these are going to go in the oven for the same amount of time, probably 12, likely 15 minutes.
Can you brush these with buttermilk?
Heavy cream or buttermilk is going to do the same concept. as we did the last.
Yeah, you can brush them with your buttermilk.
Yep.
Hint from the Myers family, don't drop your biscuits in the soup. Husband dropped the biscuits in soup. It was bad. 4 of them. Just 4 of them.
Not all of them. You
Not
still
all
have
of
a few. Okay.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be date night, so it's okay.
It is. We're still married.
There you go. So the sweet biscuits will cook for the same amount of time at 400 degrees at 12, 15 minutes. If you saw what Sherry posted in the comments. So if you get yours going, got them on a pan, got a little sugar on them. If you noticed with your biscuit cutters, if you got them, you have a pretty side and a plain side. So like biscuits, you might have used this side if you're making the, I never know which way to go. If you're making the shortbread kind of cookies for like your strawberry shortcakes, you might want to use the little fluted side. Up to you.
One thing I haven't mentioned yet, but I haven't real quick, you have your creams out, get that ready.
So this is my finished product of the other biscuit.
Mimi, those look awesome.
They look good, Mimi.
I hope they taste good too.
I think that we lost Chef Allison again, so I'm going to see if I can find her again.
I think I have yours. Unless you bought more. I did not. Pretty sure I bought it. Why I was gone? No, a long time ago.
She must be in a neighborhood where they're streaming a lot of movies or something.
Yeah, I see Sherry. I don't know why I keep doing that. But I'm here.
I see her now. Sherry, you see her?
I don't see her yet, no.
She is, well, she's kind of frozen again.
Oh, I see her. I see her.
Yep.
Oh, I did see her.
All right, so if you have your cream, make it in the fridge or the freezer if you've had it sitting out. But you want your cream to be nice and cold, which was what we're going to be working with next.
So if everybody heard what Allison said, and you're taking your cream, because we're going to be making that whipped topping next. If you have it sitting out right now, stick it in your freezer real quick for a few minutes. So we got everybody where we're at and the biscuits in.
The biscuits, did she say put brown sugar on the top of them?
You can put regular sugar, you can put brown sugar, and some kind of sweet to the top of it.
Okay, thanks.
Mariah wants to put cinnamon sugar on top of it, which would work too. Here's your cinnamon.
Cinnamon sugar? Yeah.
Yeah, that's what Mariah, like I'm passing her to the cinnamon shaker because that's what she wants to put.
Is there anything else that they're going to need for the whipped cream? Are they going to need a mixer or a whisk or anything else that they need to be getting ready for to be making the homemade
Well,
cream?
if you have a hand mixer or a KitchenAid mixer or something like a stand mixer, you are going to.
I need the top one probably.
Okay, everybody heard that you're looking for a hand mixer.
Yeah.
And we lost Allison again for a second.
I just wanted everybody to know that the biscuits in the orange skillet turned out perfect. Just took a little bit longer, about 25 minutes.
Oh, there you go.
But they're good and brown.
Good to know.
They were really fluffy and brown.
Good deal. So everybody's biscuits are going in at 400, 12 to 15 minutes. You'll have a good,
Can you also freeze these?
yes. You could do the same
Yes.
thing with these. You
Yes.
put them on a pan, like freeze them, not stacked or anything. After they're frozen, put them in your baggies together. So you could take.
Okay, thank you.
got it. Yep. And then cook them.
So for the whipped cream, if you have a mixer or you have a hand mixer or stand mixer, you're going to want to use this with the whisk attachment. You can make homemade whipped cream with just your hand and a whisk, but it takes a lot of love.
You're gonna get that wrist action going if you do it that way. I think
I would advise everybody to use electric mixer maybe. A whisk isn't gonna get it.
Come on, Billy, you can use some of your arm strength and use your hand whisk for this. For everybody else, use a hand or get the regular electric mixer out.
Oh, man. It takes all you can do.
we've got to find Allison again. We've done a lot of these classes with her. This is the first time we've lost her so much.
I know you haven't. I just spotlighted her again, but I think it just keeps she keeps going all the way out is what happens.
Yep. So I really don't. I don't know where she went.
Do you want it? Just I don't know why it keeps kicking me out.
Yeah.
Kenna,
Yes.
are we supposed to be mixing our whipped cream?
We are getting our mixer ready. We're getting our heavy cream out and ready. You're going to need your vanilla. You're going to need some confectionery sugar. Those are things that we're going to be working together. So if you want to get a bowl, a mixer, you can use a whisk. Electric would probably be better. You're going to need your vanilla and your confectionery sugar. And hopefully we get Allison back enough that she can walk us through this process. So Allison, can you hear me?
I'm here. I'm
Okay.
here.
All right.
Yeah,
we
I'm
see you.
here.
We see you now. If you want to talk us through what we're going to do in case we lose you again, I can talk them through again. So explain to them what you're going to be doing for.
Sure. Yeah.
And
Said for whipped cream, you just want to have your cream nice and cold. Another great tip that you can do is you can also chill your bowl if you want. Like you can get your bowl in the fridge and chill it ahead of time if you want to do that and you know you're making whipped cream. So just take it out of the fridge, pour your whipped cream in, super easy. Then you're just going to start whipping it at a medium speed as soon as you add that cold cream. You want the whisk attachment.
What's the, excuse me.
Sure,
What's
locked in.
So we're just doing the heavy cream right now, not adding the sugar or anything yet.
Okay. For Allison, was that correct? We're just putting the heavy cream in the bowl and starting the whisk going.
Yeah, just start whipping the cream. Just start whipping the cream. And then once that starts to get frothy a little bit, then you're going to start to pour in that powdered sugar and that splash of vanilla.
Excuse me, what is a quick conversion of the 1 pint? One pint would equal how many cups?
1 pint should be 2 cups. So if you were
Thank
in
you.
County, you got a quart, you're going to use half of that.
So I think everyone in Gallatin County, I think I gave you a pint. I think so you would use the whole container. I believe it's a pint.
Right. And if you used a little of it out of there to brush your top, that's okay. You're not missing that much of it. So what Allison has said so far is that we're putting that half a pint worth, 2 cups worth of that heavy cream into a bowl. And you're just going to start with the whisk mixer, whisking it on a medium speed, she said. So you're finding that medium speed before you add it.
Anna, can you hear me?
I can hear you, Allison.
Can you see me yet?
No.
this gift for everyone.
I think we can.
Hello?
I think we can see you now, Allison.
All right, again, I'm sorry, I don't know what's happening with our technical difficulties this evening, but we're getting there.
Okay, so Allison,
So
what
once it
consistency?
starts to come together, it starts to thicken up, and then you should be able to just have that nice dollop of whipped cream.
Okay, so did you add your powdered sugar or vanilla to it yet?
I think we lost her again. Sorry, everyone.
Yeah, it's in the other container behind Jessa. Maybe when she comes back, I'm going to see if she'll turn her video off and she can talk us through the rest of it. If we get her back. Because I did not hear, and I don't know if anybody else picked up if she added the rest of the items to it.
Yeah, she did once it got frothy.
Once it got frothy, Mariah said she added the teaspoon of vanilla and the half
Yeah,
a cup
she
of
said once
powdered
it got
sugar.
medium frothy, then go ahead and add it.
Yep. Somebody's enjoying you nice close up, Sherry.
That's my neighbor. She lives down the street.
There you go. So we're making our whipped cream. So pretty much you got your heavy cream in there. Once it's frothy, you're putting in your 2 teaspoons of vanilla and a half a cup of powdered sugar. And you know what the consistency of whipped cream looks like. So I'm going to mute myself back so Mariah can finish mixing hers so you don't hear the mixer going. But you want to get it after you've added those ingredients to that look like a whipped topping kind of consistency. And most of what Cool Whip looks like.
It just, for some reason, it keeps kicking me out and reconnecting, and I don't know why it's doing that at all.
That's okay. We're keeping up. We've got
I
it.
did the whipped cream. I mixed it for maybe 30 to 45 seconds on that medium speed till it got nice and frothy, and then added in the powdered sugar and the vanilla, and then turned it to a high speed for another minute. And really just till you get a nice thick consistency that wants to kind of hold a bit of a peak, like a soft peak. Okay. Like Cool Whip. I will tell you a rule of thumb is that if your cream is warm, it may start to look like butter, and that's exactly what it is turning into, is sweet butter. So that's why you want your cream to be cold, because if it starts to curdle and clump, then that is because the cream was a little too warm and it wants to turn and churn to butter.
Allison, after you make the whipped cream, can you store that in the refrigerator, or is it best just to use it and eat it all tonight?
It's best to use it fresh, but it should keep for another day.
Does this look right?
Who's showing me?
Bonnie. Just shows the whisk.
I'm trying to find you.
Oh, I see it, Bonnie. I think it looks a good consistency that I can see.
All right, thanks.
So at this point, if you want to kind of clean your station a little bit, we should have a few more minutes on those biscuits, and then we can assemble these strawberry shortcakes.
Chef Allison, someone asked if they could store the biscuits in the refrigerator and just cook tomorrow. Do you recommend that, or do you recommend the freezing them?
Recommend the freezer. If you're going to store them, freeze them, and then you can always pull them back out and pop them in the oven from the freezer.
I'm sorry, I misread it. If after she bakes them, is it best to store them in the refrigerator or on top of the counter, or where do you?
I would leave them out at room temperature, wrapped tightly, but after they cool, but not in the fridge once you've baked them.
For the sweet ones, they're supposed to be golden brown on the top too, yes?
Yes. Oh, I see some in the oven there. Trudy's got some coming out. Looks good. All right, I'm gonna go check mine, and then we're gonna let those cool and we can assemble those strawberry shortcakes. In the meantime, do we have any other last minute questions in case we get disconnected yet again?
I thought of something, Allison. I wasn't, guess, paying good enough attention, and I put the 1/4 cup of sugar in my strawberries, so now they're like really juicy. So should I drain some or just leave it that way?
The liquid is just fine. That's what you want to spoon over top of the bottom of your biscuit to sop that liquid up. So that's just fine.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Chef Allison, I have a question about your vanilla. Is there a certain type of brand of vanilla that you like more than others for like extract? Because you see all these different vanilla extract brands.
Did she hear?
I don't have a personal favorite brand. I mean, I love that Madagascar vanilla if you can find it, which is the higher end, but for this purpose of vanilla, you know, just standard vanilla extract will work. You know, the imitation's fine as well, not quite as great quality as your pure, but I know the pure vanilla extract right now is really expensive.
Sherry?
And I just pulled mine out, so I'll show you mine. If you show me yours.
Yeah.
This is Kathy in Carroll County. We actually did a vanilla tasting in one of our classes. And out of 15 to 18 women, we like the artificial or imitation vanilla better than the pure vanilla. They thought the pure was too strong.
Wow.
Wow.
Well, there you go.
No.
Our vanilla is from Haiti. Huh. Sherry Myers said her vanilla is from Haiti. She gets it on mission trips. It's a good vanilla there. How's everybody else's? Is there anybody else's biscuits out yet? Or short? It's like cakes out.
I see Trudy. She's got hers all plated up. It looks delicious, Trudy.
I see somebody eating one. Rosemary, I told Larry you'd be making him biscuits. He said he likes biscuits for breakfast. Oh, look at that, Trudy. It looks good.
So I'm going to plate up one of the strawberry shortcakes and then let you all just enjoy yourselves. Let me know if you can see me.
We can.
Back down here. Yeah.
Yep.
I can
Okay,
see.
so you've got your whipped cream, your strawberries, and then your biscuit. These are going to be a little bit more delicate, so you're likely going to need to use a spatula to get them out and a knife to cut them, because again, the shortening also help to crisp and hold those together a little better.
You squeeze in my bowl.
Because these are just butter, they're going to be a little bit more delicate and flaky.
Chuck, you want one? Whoops.
Kenna,
Yes.
Larry's already tasted the savory and he says they're great.
Good.
Very good.
So you got that liquid underneath there. You can put that liquid, the more liquid, the better, because that's what soaks up onto the biscuit. I use blueberries and strawberries. And we're just going to do a dollop of that whipped cream. Maybe 2. And then there you have it.
Looks wonderful.
So if I made my sweet biscuits really big using a big cutter, like I only got like 6 biscuits out of it because I made them so big, but will it take them longer to cook? Should I give them longer or?
If they're not that golden brown, they may take a little bit longer to cook in the center, so they be a little bit doughy in the center if they're a real biscuit.
Okay, because I put a little brown sugar on the top, so it's kind of, they look brown, but I think it's the sugar.
Yeah, you can give them another minute. I did find on these second round of biscuits, I turned my personal oven up to 425, and I like the way that they browned a little bit better. So I might suggest the next time you make these biscuits, try cooking them at that 425.
Yeah, we turned our oven up too for the second round. I see lots of people eating. Trying to see.
Well, what do we think?
Do you like the savory or the sweet?
Both, I like both of them.
Both.
Both. There you go. Our sweet hasn't came out yet.
Allison, before we lose you, Billy and Doris, we want to thank you. And ours was delicious.
Good.
Yeah.
My oven is 30 years old. So
Very-
it's low.